Good, what's going on? JB here with another CyberInsight streaming session. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Telnet. Let me take a look at some stuff real quick just to make sure the stream and all that jazz is working good, and then we can hop into stuff. So just real quick. Yep, looking good over there, and everything looks good. Yep. So let's get out of that. Okay. My apologies. We also have a thunderstorm going on here. I don't know if you can actually hear the thunder and the rain coming down. My mic is really an awesome mic and very sensitive, but I'm not sure if you're actually picking up the rest of that noise outside. So, as I mentioned, this lab is going to be about Telnet. So this is the third Network Plus practical lab that I've done a video on. If you like this and you've liked the other ones, please make sure that you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bells on the Twitter channel. That way I know that everybody's enjoying it and it's useful. I just want to think if there's anything else I want to hit on before we hop into the lab. Oh, one thing I did want to talk about real quick. Friend DJax Alpha on Twitter, he's going to be giving his first SANS webinar presentation on Monday. That's going to be at 1 o'clock. He's going to be doing a talk on the OWASP API Security Top 10 for pen testers. Getting the ability to do a SANS presentation is a really big deal. So if you aren't following him, please go ahead and do that. And if you're able to show up and support for that webinar, I think that would be awesome. I think it's going to be a great opportunity. I think he's going to have a lot of awesome information. Even if you aren't in pen testing, it still will be worth showing up and learning something. So, all right, let's see. Anything else? I think those were the only things that I wanted to hit before we get into this. So Telnet. What is Telnet? Well, it is a protocol that we use, well, not anymore, but we used to use for remote access to devices. And it uses TCP port 23. Normally we would associate the number 23 with greatness, but in this case that is not it. Telnet is a pile of hot garbage. And the reason why it is a pile of hot garbage is because the entire data stream is unencrypted. So that might not have been that much of an issue 30 years ago, but now we're at a point where, if you think about it logically, you're connecting to remote devices, you're logging in with authentication credentials, typing in confidential type of things. Anybody on the network that has any type of packet sniffer could actually pick up that traffic and would be able to get your username and password and stuff like that. So Telnet at this point is a relic. We do not use it for remote authentication. If you are in an environment that does, you need to do something quick and get off of that. Pretty much everywhere now uses SSH over TCP port 22. So the purpose of this lab is to show you how you can use Telnet, how to set it up, and then I'm going to show you why it is as bad as I say it is. This is something that is still covered in the Network Plus. You still do need to know about Telnet. You need to know the port associated with it. You need to know what it's for. But I'm going to try and drive home the point of why you would not want to use this for what it was originally intended for. And once we get through that, I'm going to actually show you a few things that you can do with it, not from a remote administrative standpoint, that actually does make it still a very useful troubleshooting tool. Let's see if we got anybody dropping in. We got one comment. Hey, all right, we're getting the ball rolling. We're going to jump in here. So, hey, appreciate you being on the stream. So, the lab, what we're going to do here is just set up a PC terminal connecting to a router. We're going to set up Telnet on the router. I'm going to show you, what that looks like to configure that, how that works. And then after that, we're actually going to set up a sniffer, which a sniffer is a device, whether it's hardware or software, where you're able to actually see the packets that go over the wire. Surprisingly, Packet Tracer actually has a sniffer device that is in the lab, or no, I shouldn't say in the lab, but is an available option for a type of device you can use within their framework, which is pretty cool. I wasn't actually expecting them to have that. Normally, we would use a tool like Wireshark or something like that, and that obviously has a lot more robust features than what we can do here within Packet Tracer, but it's still going to drive home the point. So let's go ahead and get this set up. We are going to go with a PC, and we'll drop that there, and then we're going to go with a router. Let's see, we'll just go with a 2811. We'll move this kind of over here in the middle so everybody can see this. And remember, we talked about doing connections on here. We're going to use the straight line connection for a straight through cable. We're going to go from Fast Ethernet 0 over to Fast Ethernet 00. Now we're going to configure the IP addresses on the interfaces. If you remember, under the workstation and servers, we do this under the desktop. We go to IP configuration. We're going to make this really easy. We're going to go 192.168.1.1. Subnet mask is going to auto-populate here, so that's cool. It's going to be 255.255.255.0, which is a /24 subnet mask. We don't need to do anything else there. And we're going to go over to the router. Now remember, when we do the router, we're going to go into the CLI section here. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see that. And if you remember from the previous ones, whenever you're starting the router up for the first time, in here it's going to ask you if you want to go in the initial configuration dialog. We do not want to do that, so we're going to type no. And we're going to hop in. So we're going to go enable mode, config T for configure terminal, which allows us to input in different configurations. The interface we were using was FA00. We go IP address 192.168. We did 1.1 on the computer, so we'll go 1.2 here. And the same subnet mask, /24. And we'll go no shut. That is going to bring that to an up state. If we move this out of the way and look back here on the screen, that link now has gone green. Okay, we should be able to do ping 192.168.1.1. That do command is something useful whenever you're in the config mode. If you want to run a command that you normally wouldn't be in config mode, you can do the do word, and then you can add whatever the command is that you want to do. So we got connectivity between the two devices. That is good. Now, if you remember from the lab the other day when we configured the SSH, it's going to be very, very similar to that, except instead of the transport input being SSH, we're going to use Telnet. So we go line VTY, we'll do all of them, so 0 through 15. Remember, because there's 16 VTY lines, I think. 0 through 15. There we go. I said 15. Well, I said 16, but I meant 15. Let's see, and then we're going to go transport input Telnet. Remember, if we look at the options here, we looked at that the other day. We're going to go Telnet. And then remember, because we're just doing this as simply as we can, we're just going to put a password here. We'll go JBC. I think that is all that I wanted to do there. So we can go end. We'll take a look at this config, IP address on the interface, and we have the login, Telnet, and the password. Okay, awesome. Let's go back to the PC. We will make this big again. Command prompt. And we are going to go Telnet 192.168.1.2. And you see, it tries it. It says open, and then it asks us for a password. We're going to put in the password. If we put in, I don't know, I'll just mess something up. That doesn't work. We get prompted to put in the password again. We put in the correct password, which is JBC. And now we have access to the router. We can go enable. Like last time, we didn't set an enable password, so we're not going to get any further than that. Although you do have some other options that you can do there, but not much. Okay, so that is great. That is how Telnet works. Nothing exciting about that. Let me actually show you why this is a bad thing. So if we go back, I mentioned that we could do a sniffer. Let's get rid of that connection for a second. So if we go back to end devices, as options, they have a sniffer. And we can put that right here. And we're going to connect the router to port 1 on the sniffer. And then we'll do another connection from the PC, fast Ethernet 0, to port 0 on the sniffer. And we'll kind of straighten that out. Okay. There's not much configuration that you need to do on the sniffer. Really, it's just you make sure it's on, and you choose which port is going to have the incoming packets. So what that means is it's only going to be collecting or sniffing on traffic that is coming from the incoming way. If we wanted to do this in a way where we were getting both the transmit and receive, we would actually have to set up another sniffer and have the links go in the incoming into one, and then the connection from the router going into another one, and enable that specific interface on that sniffer to catch the traffic that's going back. What we see here is this is going to list where all of the different packets that we see come in, and then they have different filters that they have for different types of traffic that it's looking for. This is by no means a great packet sniffer. Like I said, Wireshark is kind of the default that we would normally use in an operational environment. But for learning and using Packet Tracer, this is going to be pretty cool. It's going to be useful. So let's get out of the sniffer. It is turned on. Now what we're going to do is go back to the PC. We're going to go back to our command prompt. Let's exit out of this. Okay. And we are going to Telnet again. Well, actually, before I do that, let me go and clear the sniffer just so it's easier to see this, because we've already got a whole bunch of other traffic in here. So let's clear that and go back to the PC. We're about to Telnet. Right, there we go. Telnet, open, ask for the password JBC, and then I'm going to type EN for enable, and we're going to get kicked back that we don't have access. Okay, so let us go back to the sniffer now. And this is why this is such hot garbage. So when we are looking at this, we'll make this really big so you can see this perfectly. We're going to see the traffic start to come in. It's going to be from the top going down. And when we look at what the packet sniffer is seeing, we see a few things that are kind of interesting here. We see the source and destination IP. We see its IP version 4. We see some time to live stuff. We see the protocol. If you remember, the IP protocol here, 06 is going to be TCP. UDP is going to be 17. If we scroll down and look in the TCP section here, we see the source port and destination port. Destination port is 23, which means that this is going to be a Telnet packet. And we see the same thing looking through these. But then we get to the actual Telnet packet itself. And the interesting thing with the sniffer is that it allows you to actually see what that data is. So when we get down to that, we can see that this packet has a Telnet data of J. I wonder what this is going to be. Let's go to the next one. B. And we'll go to the next one. C. So what we can see from this is that by having the sniffer in place between the PC and the device that I'm logging into with Telnet, it's able to capture my data and it's able to capture my password. So this is really not a great thing to be using on an environment for any type of remote administration purposes. If we keep going through the rest of these, you can see space and then wait, and then we should end up seeing, yep, my E, and then probably an N for enable. Yep, there we go. So in general, bad idea, don't use it. But there is something we can use Telnet for, and it's kind of a cool tool from a troubleshooting perspective, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what that is. So we are going to kill this connection, right? And we are going to put a server up here, just like we did the other day. So let's move the server. Now, let's get rid of that. I want to actually do a connection. Now, if you remember the other day when we were connecting like devices together, that link is red. And the reason that link is red is because I used a straight through cable, and it's two types of like devices, right? So just like when we connected router to router the other day, we need to do a crossover cable. So let's get rid of that, and we'll change this to crossover, and we'll change that. Oh man, I got to get rid of that link first. Let's see. See if that will do that. If that's, no, it's not gonna let me do that. Okay, can I delete that? There we go. Okay, let's go back. We're gonna do a crossover cable from fast Ethernet 0 to Ethernet 0. Okay, that is up, but the server doesn't have an IP address yet. So let's go set that real quick. Desktop, set the IP. We'll use the same IP as what we used on the router. 1.2. We're good with that. We don't need to do anything else there. And we should be able to ping back, ping 192.168.1.1. Yeah, we are good. Okay. So, what is it that we can do that is really cool? Well, there's some services that are running on this server. There's a web server running on here, running over HTTP, which is TCP port 80. And there is, it's also running over TCP 443 for HTTPS. So what we can do, let's see if the email is running as well. Okay, yeah, there's an email server running as well. Okay. So what we can do on this PC is we can use the telnet command to actually check to see if a service is running on a remote host. Now, when we were using this before to log into a device, we were using port 23, which is a default to connect for remote management purposes, right? And we said that that's really bad. But we can use the telnet command, 192.168.1.2, to connect over any TCP port that we actually want to check. So in this case, we could do port 80. And you'll see it made a connection and says open. So that's kind of cool. We can also see if we get anything over 443. Yep, 443 is open. Let's see if the email will respond back. Yep, and we get a response back from the email as well. And just to show you that this is actually how that is functioning, if we go back on this guy and we turn off HTTP, should be able to try to get out of that. If it will let me, might have to. Come on. It won't let me exit out of there. Let's see if I can do that from the terminal. No, that's not gonna let me do it. Okay. Let's exit out. So waiting for that to time out. You would think that it would. I can also, to perfectly show that, turn off SMTP on this, and that should kill that service. Let's see if that canceled it. Yes. Okay. So that kind of proved my point, but I can do the same again with just going to port 80 because we turned that off as well. And what you'll see there is it's trying, but you aren't going to get an open. So Telnet from that perspective is actually very useful. So if you are trying to troubleshoot something and you see if a service is active, that is a great tool because Telnet usually is a protocol that is enabled within an operating system. And you just Telnet over the specific port of the service that you want to check, as long as it is a TCP port. So I use that quite a bit sometimes. So there you go. You can use it as well. Let's see if there's any questions. I don't think so. I think we're looking good. So yeah, so that's Telnet. A hot pile of garbage. Don't use it for remote access. Use it for troubleshooting. Like I said before, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. We are coming back next week. I think I'm going to do videos on, what are we doing? NTP, DHCP, and maybe some stuff with UDP and TCP. So if you're around, definitely check those out. If not, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, and that way you'll be able to come back and pick those up when you miss them. So yeah, again, check out DJAX Alpha's Sans Talk on Monday. Go get at it. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk soon. All right, goodbye.